does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! We're back again for another episode of Games In, Games Out, where I talk about the games that are coming into my collection and the games that are going out of my collection. Just want to give you a fair warning for the next actual few episodes. There's going to be a lot of retro games we're talking about because, in case you didn't know, I came into a huge, absolutely massive pile of retro games. Yes, that's stacked from floor pretty close to the ceiling. So just wanted to mention that, but let's go ahead and talk about some of these games. Also, I am going to be talking about, obviously, hobby games, because that's primarily what I review, but actually for the next year or so, I'm going to be mixing in quite a few retro games. So let's go ahead and talk about which ones I like, which ones I'm going to keep, and which ones I'm just going to bring into the classroom or destroy. So, first we got ourselves Blink, the world's fastest card game. This is a very popular mass market game in which you and another player, or up to 2 other players, are going to be trying to get rid of your cards by matching colors, shapes, and how many pictures are on there. It's good. This is going to go in my classroom. It's a fun, quick mass market game. Kids enjoy it, so I am going to be putting that one into my classroom. Next, we have Jenga Tetris, which surprisingly is a better version of Tetris. Now, I didn't like the packaging because you have to, it's all loose in there, whereas with the original version of Jenga, you could put it in there nice and neat, and the next time you're ready to play, you can just quickly play. But the different Tetris shapes, because all the pieces are kind of Tetris-y shapes, actually adds a whole new dimension to the game, and I like this better than the original Tetris. So if you get a chance to get this and you like Jenga, this is definitely the version of Jenga I would recommend. Next, we have Snap, which is a game that has these puzzles type pieces that you're going to be snapping together trying to complete dragons. It is an aggressively mediocre game. I just did not like this game at all. And in fact, it says on here there's 4 different ways to play, and one of my big rules with gaming is if a game has to tell me that there's 4 different ways to play the game, that means all 4 of the gameplay ways suck, and that is the case with this game. I'm going to give this to a little girl in my class who actually did like the game. Everyone else did not like the game. Next, we have Group Photo, which is a game in which you are trying to complete this group photo. The components are god-awful in this game. The humor does not hit in this game. The artwork looks terrible in this game. I just don't get this game at all. I cannot recommend this game to anyone, and it was just bad, bad, bad. Also, there's a card in this game which has a nearly nude man who is being surprised by you taking a picture of him in the shower, and if you play that card on someone, you completely wreck their game because they get a different picture that they have to complete. And your whole goal is this picture that you're trying to complete, just beyond words how bad that game is. Next we have Pit, the Parker Brothers Frenzy trading game, which has a bell inside of it. This is a really popular game that has been popular for a long time, and I never actually got a chance to play it. I see what the popularity is about. This is a very, very simple game. We're going to have a hand of cards, and you are going to be frantically, fast-paced, all at the same time trying to trade your cards in order to get all of the same type of cards, at which point you will ring a bell in the middle and you will score points. It's fast, it's frantic, it's great for families, it's great for kids. Wholeheartedly recommend this one. This is what I'm going to be keeping in my classroom, and I might actually get a version for at home too, because I really did dig this game. Pit. This one stands the test of time. Next we have Ella Minis, which is from Flying Meeple, which is actually a spin-off of Game Salute. Game Salute is this company that does Kickstarters, and they bring people's Kickstarter games to life. They actually have an absolutely god-awful, terrible reputation of screwing over numerous people, and so what they're trying to do now is break up their company into these 4 different companies in order to get away from their terrible name of Game Salute. Kind of imagine that you get married and you take the last name. So let's just say that you married, this is a really out there example, but Adolf Hitler. And then you're like, oh man, Adolf Hitler's really super terrible. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to change my last name to Bennett or something like that. Stamos, that's a great last name. So that's essentially what this company's trying to do by spinning off into Flying Meeple. I don't know where this tangent is going. Anywho, Ella Minis is a great children's game. It has enough meat on the bones to keep adults interested as well, where you're trying to get 5 different elements in front of you. I can recommend this game, despite the fact that I just ranted about Adolf Hitler for some weird reason. Continuing onward, we have Modern Art, the classic Reiner Nithya game. Now, I never had a chance to play this game. I played Modern Art, the card game, which is a card game I actually have in my collection, and I really did enjoy. This game is going to go into the collection. It is a really solid bidding game. What I like about this game is it's really interesting bidding, but there's numerous different ways to bid. Sometimes you're going to be bidding closed-fisted, so people won't know how much you're going to bid. Sometimes you're just going to set a price, and then you will have to pay that price if nobody else pays that price. There's just different ways to bid. It's a quick, snappy game. Everyone is always actively involved, and I really enjoy Modern Art. Definitely enjoy the new CMON version of this game. This is one you're going to want to check out, especially if you like bidding games that'll play in about the 40 minutes to an hour time range. Next, we have Vanished, a game of mystery. A game of mystery to me. So this is a really simple, enjoyable children's game where you're going to try to remember which people are on different spots on an elevator. But for some reason, they took this really simple children's game that could be played by ages 6+ and turned it into this adult theme where you're like a security guard and you're trying to catch these adults. I have no idea. I hate the box. I hate the artwork. This is essentially a memory match game, but the pictures don't match each other. So on one picture, you might have this obese woman with a dog, but on this next picture, you might have an obese man with a dog, and the dog's a different dog, but that's the match, and you're like, wait, what? Why is that the match? Is this, like a cross-dresser or something like that? I have no idea what the hell they were thinking with this game. It's a terrible game. There's a reason why you've never heard of this game, and that's because the gameplay itself is a fantastic children's game, but they tried to take that children's game and make it into an adult game with really weird choices. Vanished, a game of mystery, is not a good game. Next, we have Rooster Rush from Mayday Games. I normally am really solid on Mayday Games. This one's an okay to good game. I like this game. I am going to be keeping this game, I think, in my classroom for the time being, but this is definitely one that's probably going to get kicked out eventually. So in this game, you're going to be spinning these poker chips and then trying to slap cards of various different cards that are going to be safe cards. So essentially, you're spinning this poker chip, which on one side is going to have a fire truck, and on the other side it's not going to have a fire truck. And if it lands on a fire truck, then that means a fire truck is going to hit you, since you're trying to cross traffic, if you slap a fire truck card. It's a really interesting dexterity slapping, push your luck game. I enjoyed it, but for some reason my kids had trouble wrapping their brains around this game, and it just wasn't enough meat on the bones for adults. So I don't know if this one's going to stay in my collection in my classroom for too long. While I did enjoy it, I don't think this is one that's probably going to stick around for too long. But definitely one you'll want to check out. It's interesting. It's by Antoine Bauza, one of my favorite game designers of all time. Interesting game. Next, we have Phase 10 Dice. This is a dice version of the immensely popular mass market game Phase 10, and wow, it completely replaces Phase 10 for me, as long as you're playing with under 4 players. Really was pleasantly surprised by this game. It is quick, it is snappy, the scoring actually matters in this game, whereas in Phase 10, the scoring was just kind of a nuisance, keeping track of the score. The score in this game really does matter. I really enjoyed Phase 10 Dice. This one, if you can find it, and you like Phase 10, or if you play games like this, is definitely one you're going to want to check out. Next, we have Showdown of the Century. We have Spare Time Bowling Game versus Bowl and Score. And this one's easy. Bowl and Score is exactly the same game as Spare Time Bowling, except Spare Time Bowling actually has these round circles which are split. So they add one new mechanism to the game, and that new mechanism makes it a better game. Also, the packaging is smaller, so I will be keeping Spare Time Bowling Game in my classroom, and I will be getting rid of Bowl and Score, but honestly, you can't go wrong with either one of them as long as you don't mind a completely 110% luck-driven bowling game. Next, we have Barely Working, which I reviewed, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I don't remember much of anything about this game, and that should tell you all you need to know about the game. It was aggressively mediocre, if I recall correctly. Oh, this was a bidding game. This was a bidding game where you had to balance getting money and getting victory points on the different bears that you were bidding on, and getting money was good because then you could win more bears, but getting the victory points was good because victory points were all that mattered at the end of the game. It had a good sense of humor, but other than that, it was a very forgettable game, as you can see by the fact that I've forgotten most about this game. Next, we have Leapin Lilies, which is a great children's game by Dr. Rainer Knizia, one of the most popular, probably one of the most popular game designers of all time. he is the most prevalent game designer of all time. He's designed more games than anybody else, aside from people who design like war games and stuff like that. It's a really simple children's memory match game that has an extra element that I did like. If you can find this for your young one, definitely recommend this one. Ages 4+. Really like Leapin Lily pads. Next we have The Last Straw, the Camel game. This is a really interesting old school game in which you're actually going to have this camel, and he's going to have this thing on his back, this basket on his back, and you're just going to take turns putting straws into the basket on the back until someone eventually breaks the camel's back, and the camel's back will kind of like break in half, which looks incredibly painful. It's 100% luck driven, and I mean, I just gave you the description of the game. You're pretty much going to know if you want the game by that description. But even if you do want the game, it's going to be really hard to find because it's old as dirt and it's out of print. I personally will not be keeping this game because it's 110% luck, and it just wasn't for me. Next, we have the Munchkin collectible card game from Steve Jackson Games. I'm a fan of Munchkin. Not so hot on CCGs. I've played Magic, and I really couldn't get into that. I like the LCG model better, but I actually really dug this game. I think I gave it about an 8, and I think it's a good to great card game. I really did. I dug the card game. I enjoyed the quick, snappy pace of the game. I enjoy the humor in this game. I like the artwork in this game. I like the gameplay in this game. The only big hiccup I had with this game was the fact that they had one glaring rules oversight where they forgot to mention how a specific card worked, which just seemed, I have no idea how they did that. They reached out to me and said, oh, we're going to fix that in the next edition. We don't know how we missed that either. That seems like a really dumb mistake. But Munchkin CCG, if you're looking to get into a CCG, this one is not half bad. I think if you like Munchkin, it has enough of that Munchkin flavor and that Munchkin gameplay in there. I like the push your luck. There's a bluffing aspect of this game. So Munchkin CCG, one that I definitely can recommend if you're looking to get into a CCG. If not, probably not going to be for you. Next we have Free Parking. This is a game obviously spun off of Monopoly in which you are going to be out and about on the town, filling up your parking meter, trying to complete mundane tasks like taking your son or taking your what is it, your nephew to the dentist, or going to the doctor to have him look at your broken arm. Seriously, that's what you're doing in this game by playing down time cards and then playing down mundane tasks, like you're visiting people in jail and stuff like that. The theme's really bizarre. I enjoyed the game except for one big thing, which are these orange cards that completely change the entire ebb and flow of the game. So essentially, there's these 1 cards that you're going to be able to draw each and every turn if you want to, and they just do wildly, drastically swingy things like, oh, you've lost all your time, or everybody has lost all their time, or you get to steal a card from somebody. And those cards were terrible. Not to mention the cards felt like an afterthought, which is really kind of weird. Watch my review if you're more interested in that. But the cards felt like they were, the components were completely different. Like the components for this game are great, and in these cards, they felt like they were printed on a desk jet after the game was already made, and they just threw them in there. Didn't like that, and that ended up souring Free Parking for me. Next, we have Put and Take, one of the oldest games that I've ever played, and it's a really simple LCR. It feels like an old school LCR where essentially you're going to be spinning a dreidel. Yes, you heard me right, a dreidel, and you're either going to be putting chips into the kitty or taking chips out of the kitty, and you're trying to get all the chips from the kitty. It outstayed its welcome. The game was a little bit too long. It's 100% luck-driven. Not a game for me. Next, we have Mind Trap. This is a really interesting game where essentially you are going to be breaking up into teams where you can just play as individuals and trying to solve riddles and do like these brain teasers. Some of them are cheap, some of them are stupid, but I really enjoyed this game. I plan on getting all the expansions and just mixing it all together. Really dig this one. I know you see this one at thrift shops all the time. If you like brain teasers, if you like riddles, this is definitely one I recommend checking out. That is Mind Trap. Next, we have Sequence Dice, and it is a dice version of Sequence. I'm going to keep this one in my classroom. I really dug this game. Essentially, you're just going to be rolling dice and then trying to connect 5 or 6 in a row, depending on your player count. Kids in my class really like this. They really enjoy Sequence as well, which is a game that I haven't had too much experience with. But if your kids like Sequence, I think they will really enjoy Sequence Dice, so I can recommend it for that avenue. For adults, no, this is not one I'm going to go with unless you play with adults who play mass market games. But Sequence Dice, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I'm going to put this in my classroom. Next, we have Battle for Souls, and this is the deluxe edition of the game. This is a 2-player. You can play it 4-player, but I wouldn't recommend playing it 4-player. game where you're going to try to play as either the forces of heaven or the forces of hell, and you're going to try to corrupt souls to your side by playing various different sin or not sin cards. It's actually a really interesting two-player game that I absolutely highly recommend. Really enjoyed it. It's got 4 built-in mini expansions in this version of the game. Really nice components, especially with the deluxe version of the game. It's simple, it's snappy. I think it's a fantastic two-player game if you're looking for a two-player game that has a little bit of meat on the bones, but not too much. So that is Battle for Souls, one I was very pleasantly surprised with. Oh. Next we have Input, a strategy game ahead of its time. And this is a really interesting strategy game. Unfortunately, once you get past the interesting aspect of the game, it's purely an okay to good game where you're going to be moving pieces around a board, and those pieces are actually going to be pre-programmed pieces. So you have to decide which pieces you put out as they move around a programmed route. I thought it was okay. Some people might think it's good, but for the most part, the kids in my class thought it was okay. And the biggest comment I have with this game is the fact that I would say at least 10 to 25% of the games end in a tie. Just a flat-out tie where you have one piece and your opponent has one piece, and since they're pre-programmed, they're just going to move to those same spots over and 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 over again, and I did not enjoy that. Next, we have Untold Adventure Awaits. Without a doubt, one of the most interesting games I've ever played in my life. So they tried to take Rory story cubes and make it into this role-playing, create-your-own TV show type of game. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to wrap your brain around, but it's also kind of amazing with the kids. I don't know if I'd ever play this with adults, but the kids I played this with absolutely enjoyed this game. So essentially, you are going to create a character, you're going to create a scenario, you're going to be rolling dice, you're going to be going on an adventure, and it's just, I want to try to do this, or I have a question about the scenario we're playing right now, and you roll dice to figure out how that question gets answered, and then you use your imagination. This game is all about imagination and storytelling. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you have kids ages 8+ who have a vivid imagination, who love telling stories, this is a must-own game. I absolutely love this game. I am going to be keeping this game until my son gets older to play it with him. I'm going to bring it in my classroom for right now. That is Untold Adventure Awaits. If you have kids who enjoy story cubes, this is the next level, and it's amazing for the people who would enjoy it. We got 2 more. Last but not least, we got Shakin Sorry. And this one is one I'm going to keep. My son really enjoys it. It doesn't really play that much like Sorry. It's a very quick, simple dice rolling game where you're trying to get you're trying to get 4 dice into your home. It's light, it's simple. And if you have very young kids, I'd say ages 4.5 to 7 or 8, they will enjoy this game. It's short enough that it's not going to outstay its welcome. That is Shakin Sorry. Last but not least, we have Happy Feet Mumbles Tumble, which is a very simple balancing game where you're going to have this iceberg, which you put out in the middle of the table, and they're going to have these really nice penguins that look more like toys, and you're going to be putting them on there, trying to balance them. It is a very simple balancing game. This is one I'm actually just going to throw into my classroom. The kids will eventually destroy it and lose all the pieces, but I don't really care because I got it for next to nothing. You find it at a thrift store and you have young kids, I would recommend it because it's a fun game itself. It's a fun short game itself, but also the penguins themselves look like just straight up toys that you could have bought for Happy Feet back in the day. So that is continuing onward. We have Double Play Baseball. I'm going to be giving this one away to some kid in my classroom. It just wasn't good enough. I mean, it's fun, and I like baseball, but it's 100% luck, and it way outstays its welcome, so giving that one away. Next, we have Sakura from Osprey Games. This is a new one from Minor Nithya, and I was bored out of my mind with this game. So this is going into my sell/get rid of pile. I want nothing to do with this one. I never want to play it again. Kids in my class were bored with it. Adults were bored with it. I was bored with it. No thank you. Stop phoning it in, Reiner. Next, we have Word Mines, a pretty fun adult party game if you're into adult party games. That's pretty much it. It is an adult version of Taboo where you have to get your team to guess a word, and you can't say certain words. Really simple, very fast. The rounds go by in 1 minute, which I did dig. I'm actually not going to keep this, but I'm going to get it to my buddy who plays a lot of drinking games. So when I play drinking games, I generally play with him, and then I give them to him, so he's getting that game. Next, we have Limbo, the funnest time you're going to have smashing your face into a block of wood. This is a really bizarre game where you're going to strap a piece of wood to your nose, and on that wood there's Velcro, and then you're going to bend over without touching the ground and try to pick up a smaller piece of wood that will be on top of these big wooden blocks. And it is such a bizarre game. Watch my review if you're more interested. Nearly broke my nose and a kid in my class's nose. This is one I'm going to keep in, I don't know. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to give it to a kid and then make them sign a non-disclosure agreement that they won't sue me if they break their nose. Terrible idea. What in the hell were they thinking? Next we have Charterstone, a village building legacy game. So I'm keeping this game, but I'm not getting rid of anything in my collection. This one is actually going to go in the kill closet where I put games that are going to be getting rid of and sold, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to hold on to it for probably about 7 years and then play it with my son when he gets old enough to just get a recharge pack. Me and my wife played it, really did enjoy it. I think it's a great experience. I think it's a great game. It's not something I'm going to want to replay when I'm done with it. I liked it best at the higher player counts, but still, I liked it at 2 players as well. Really solid. If you're thinking about it and you have a group to do it, I would recommend it. It's not amazing. It's not something I'd rank like a 9 or higher or give Bowers Best Seal in, but I do think it's a great legacy experience. Next, we have Manga Manga, which is a really stinking awesome speed game, speed matching colors game. Have you ever played Blink? Think Blink, but with gamery stuff. It's got special cards where you get like victory tokens if you win a round, or defeat tokens. So if you're the worst player in a round, you actually get a token which will help you out a little bit later in the game by giving you a certain special ability. Really dig this one. I'd love to see an expansion. So this one's going straight into my classroom. Next we have Leverage, a game of strategy and suspense. This is a really stinking cool 2-player abstract game. It's one of the best abstract games I've ever played. All about keeping balance on this board. Really stinking cool. But here's the thing. I don't play abstract games that much unless I'm reviewing them. I have 1 or 2 in my collection, and they never get played. So I'm probably going to give this one away to a kid in my class who really dug the game. Because I'm never going to play it, but they probably actually would play it at home. So I'm going to give it away. Next, we have Slide 5, another abstract strategy game. This one has a really cool premise because you're going to have this 3-dimensional board that you're going to set up. And then you slide pieces in there, and they lock in place, and then you can push people out of the way, and you can also push them off the board entirely. It's actually a really cool idea for an abstract strategy game. Unfortunately, the pieces don't fit the way they should, and it ends up causing all sorts of issues because you can't really get to pieces without having to dismantle the board, which screws everything up. So in the end, it stinks. I'm going to put it in the giveaway pile. This is a pile of crap. Next, we have a Kickstarter. This one is for a game called Growl, like G-O-R-O-W-L. It's on Kickstarter now, or just ended on Kickstarter, and it is a very light, quick social deduction game that I enjoyed, and I'm actually going to keep this prototype until I get a final version of the game. It takes up next to no space, because I think it might... No, it's not going to come in a tuck box, but it's probably going to come in a very small box. I really did enjoy it. For 10 or 15 minutes, this is about the most tense game that I've ever played for that short of a period of time. So, enjoyed and keeping. Do recommend that Kickstarter if you're in the market for a short, filler-weight social deduction. Next, we have Chronicles of Pride from Lucky Duck Games. I'm going to actually be keeping this prototype, and I really am stoked for the final version of the game. This is an augmented virtual reality cooperative crime-solving game. We're going to be playing detectives, you're going to be interviewing people, you're going to be finding clues, but it has a virtual reality aspect where you'll strap it to your phone, you'll be able to look all around these different crime scenes for clues. Really stinking cool. Wholeheartedly recommend this one. I'm actually going to keep the prototype and get the final game when it comes out, which means I am going to need some space. So a game that's going out of the collection is Defend the Burbs, Zpocalypse 2. This came out last year. I enjoyed it when I got to play it, but it's kind of one of those games where you have to have a dedicated play group to play through it, or play it solo. And I don't have time to do either of those things, and as much as I thought it was a pretty good game, and it could have been even better with expansions, this is one that I am going to be kicking out of the collection, putting it in the buy/sell, or the get rid of sell pile. Another game going to that pile is By Order of the Queen from Junk Spirit Games. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game. Everybody I played it with thought it was a good fantasy cooperative game. However, this game has super big issues in the fact that it can't tell who it's trying to make the game for. Part of it looks like it's a children's game because really you have next to no choices on your turn. You have 2 choices. You're either going to fight or you're going to quest. And all of it's completely random. You roll dice every single turn, and if you roll poorly, you'll lose the game. Just end of the discussion, which I really did like. Also combined with the fact that this is a 90-minute to 2-hour game, just screams, I'm never going to get this played after I review it. So I'm getting rid of Queen of, by order of the Queen. Last but not least, another game I'm keeping, but going straight into my classroom, is Mystery Garden. This is an I Spy game from Ravensburger. It's really cool because it's also kind of like an I Spy / 20 questions / memory game. Really like it. You're going to look at this board. You're going to see something on the board, and you're going to draw a tile, and then you have to describe the tile. Just had a brain fart. You're going to have to describe the tile, and everybody else is going to ask 20 questions. Is it living? Is it blue? Is it something blah, blah, blah that I find on a farm? And then you have to narrow down the different pictures on there. I don't know. Check out the review. It's kind of hard to explain, but really stinking cool game. This one's going in my collection. Kids really ate it up. Next game is Swap, the swift swapping, switching, slapping card game that's a big pile of garbage. This is one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. The kids I played it with did not even like this game. Well, the kids who've played some more advanced games. And the biggest problem with this game is it's your typical, match the colors. Apparently, sometimes you got to slap your hand down. But the biggest problem with this game is you're consistently swapping cards. Like 1/4 of the deck will have you, or I think it's 1/5 of the cards in the game will have you swapping hands with someone else, which you have no investment in your hand. This game is so bad. I don't ever want to play or see this game ever, ever, ever. It's so bad. Not staying in my collection. Next one is Razzle, Parker Brothers. This is a really interesting spelling racing game where you and one other player are trying to find a 4-letter word in the letters in the middle as fast as you can. It has a really cool, interesting challenge system. Only problem with this game is it's a good game. It's not a great game, so it's going to go into my classroom. I'll see if it gets played, and if not, this is going to be a game that I give away to a kid who has a good behavior day. Next game is Rako. This one, slice of my nostalgia, slice of my childhood, and I'm very excited to say it does remember the good memories I have of this game do stand the test of time. I still think it's a good game about putting numbers in numerical order. Really dirt simple. I had fun playing with the kids. I'm going to bring this, play this with my son when he gets a little bit older. Still think it's a good game. One that I am going to be keeping in my classroom and bringing home when my son gets a little bit older. Next game is Guns and Steel from Tasty Menstrual. Yeah, my sponsor. I remember liking this game and thinking it's a good game, but here's the thing. Whenever I do this, whenever I shoot one of these videos, I like to go through my collection and pick out a game that has not been played in, say, the last 6 months and think about getting rid of it. And this game I'm getting rid of. You know why? Because I don't remember how to play the game, and I remember being good, but I remember nothing else about the game, which means it's just going to sit there and it's never going to get played. So this one, out of the collection, unnecessary. Still might be a great game, but I don't remember how to play it at all. Next game is Elios. So this one is a really interesting game. I think it's a great family weight game, but it's not a good game night game. Your first impression of the game will be solid, but the more you play the game, just the more simplistic the game seems, and the lack of choices really starts to become evident in this game. Also, it has a stock market that feels like it's super cool, but as you play the game more, you're like, yeah, this isn't that cool. So Elios, I think it's a great family game. And if you're looking at this as a family game, absolutely. But otherwise, I can't really recommend it. This one's going into my classroom. Kids in my classroom really enjoyed it. But I think eventually this is one that I'm probably going to be getting rid of, just period. Next game is Break Free. Really simple game where you're going to have a handcuff. You're going to be attached to everybody else, and you're trying to get this little lock and key and try to unlock yourself first. That's the whole game. Really simple. It is exactly what you think it is. I will be putting this into my classroom, and most likely, if I can find the last piece that I'm missing, I'm going to give this game away. It's not worth keeping for that long. Like, this is the kind of game that I could play with my sons when they get older, but I don't want this big box taking up that much shelf space for the next 3 to 5 years. So Break Free, if you have kids in this age range, I think they'll enjoy it for a time being, but this game also has limited legs because you're just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And the last game is The Arrival from Cryptozoic. This is a Martin Wallace game, and it got a Dice Tower Seal of Excellence. I don't know how the hell that happened, because this rule booklet is god-awful and incredibly frustrating, and the game is great. Let me say that this is a great game with interesting choices and interesting strategies abound, but the rule booklet ruined the first gameplay experience of it. Now, the second and third time when I was teaching the game, it went much, much smoother, but here's why I'm not keeping this game. Because I know inevitably what I used to do is keep games like this that I know are great games, but I would not get to play them for another, say, 6 or 7 months, and then when I go back to revisit this game, I'm going to have to go back through that rule booklet, which will leave me with the same sense of frustration that we had the first time we played the game. So in the end, the Arrival, I'm not keeping the game because I'm not going to be able to get it to the table frequently enough, and the rule booklet sinks this game for me. So, great game, terrible rule booklet. But that has been another episode of whatever the heck the name of this show is. If you enjoyed it, be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.